It's the worst presidential address he's ever heard in his life. He said it was the number one least effective, most painful speech he's ever heard. He said the first half, in his view, was written by AI, and the second was written by somebody who did policy back in 1975, who must be on the Biden staff, but he was completely underwhelmed. What did you think?
I mean, honestly, I agree with the message that Biden was trying to put out there in this speech, which I also agree. I had a difficult time getting through it. It was kind of boring for me. So I got through maybe 25%, tried to watch it multiple times, could not.
In today's video, we're diving into an unexpected and eye-opening discussion between Kasparian and Megyn Kelly. These two, often on opposite sides of the political spectrum, come together to expose corruption and hypocrisy in politics. From criticizing Joe Biden's latest speech to highlighting the influence of billionaires in both major parties, their surprising agreement sheds light on a bigger issue resonating with Americans. Let's break it all down, asterisk. Kevin John Poitz didn't hold back in his critique of Joe Biden's recent address, calling it the worst presidential speech he had ever heard. According to Poitz, the speech was disjointed, lacking any real substance or coherence. He claimed the first half felt like it was written by AI, devoid of any human touch, while the second half dragged audiences back to outdated rhetoric from
his big farewell address last night. Kevin, John Podhoretz, who hosts a podcast and Commentary Magazine and runs Commentary Magazine, and used to be a presidential speechwriter for Reagan and beyond, said it's the worst presidential address he's ever heard in his life. He said it was the number one least effective, most painful speech he's ever heard. He said the first half, in his view, was written by AI, and the second was written by somebody who did policy back in 1975, who must be on the Biden staff, but he was completely underwhelmed. What did you think?
I agree 100%. It seemed like it was like mailed in by not only Biden, but the speechwriting staff of the White House. Like, they're probably thinking, okay, we've got another week to go. Let's just see what we can do, and just let's give this to the boss and let it rip, and then move on. Right, find our next job. It was also a bit of like a microcosm of the.
For a moment meant to leave a lasting impact, the speech fell flat, exposing what some see as a broader issue of ineffective communication within the Biden administration. Public reception was equally negative, with many finding it boring and forgettable. Biden's focus on oligarchic control and wealth inequality rang hollow to critics, who pointed to his close ties with influential billionaires like George Soros as evidence of hypocrisy. While the message of fighting elite control may have sounded compelling in theory, the contradictions between his words and his administration's actions ultimately weakened its impact. Instead of inspiring and warning the nation, the speech reinforced the perception of political detachment and missed opportunities for authentic leadership. Kasparian and Megyn Kelly didn't hold back in their critique, describing Biden's address as uninspiring and failing to connect with the audience. Both commentators agreed the speech lacked coherence and felt rushed and insincere, symbolic of an administration often criticized for its grand promises but poor execution. Instead of instilling confidence or delivering a clear vision, Biden's speech reflected broader concerns about his administration's ability to meaningfully connect with the American public.
I think as a staffer, one of the things I said to myself immediately upon hearing that was like, who thought that was a good idea to push that, given the optics and the pageantry of the last week? And
yeah, who didn't see the vulnerability?
Right. Nobody thought that would not go over well, and that we'd be called on for the hypocrisy of it. And then
Stand by. Let me play that so the audience can hear it. Hold your second thought. Here it is, SOT 9.
I have no doubt that America's in a position to continue to succeed. That's why my farewell address tonight, I want to warn the country of some things that give me great concern. And that's the dangerous concentration of power in the hands of a very few ultra-wealthy people. The dangerous consequences if their abuse of power is left unchecked. Today, an oligarchy is taking shape in America of extreme wealth, power, and influence that literally threatens our entire democracy, our basic rights and freedoms, and a fair shot for everyone to get ahead.
Keep going, Kevin.
So, here we are where, that they just spent an election where they tried to frame everything as this pivot point for American democracy. And every single public poll shows that people were more worried about the Biden administration and its threat to democracy. So, it just not only I think it's, there's a false sense of alarmism that they're trying to continue to push, but it's just the hypocrisy of the message and how that message continues to land very poorly with the public. It continues to boggle my mind why they continue to push that. And then I think the last thing is,
oh yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of empty platitudes. Like Joe Biden's sort of go-to move is to always say, and there's nothing America can't achieve if we put our minds to it. 5 minutes after he just listed all of the things that are sort of dangerous and destructive about what the other half of the country believes and has essentially taken to an electorate and won on. So I just, and like the last thing I'd say is like, it was 15 minutes long. Most of the people that I talked to about it when I asked their reaction said they didn't even get their way.
Adding to the criticism, Kasparian and Kelly highlighted the hypocrisy in Democratic rhetoric on oligarchic control and wealth inequality. While Democrats often accuse Republicans of being influenced by billionaires, the reality is that their own party benefits significantly from wealthy donors. Kasparian pointed to Kamala Harris's campaign, which raised more dark money than Donald Trump's, but mismanaged it in ways that exemplify systemic corruption. Both commentators agreed that the reliance on billionaire donors by both parties undermines any credibility in their messaging about fighting elite control, exposing a bipartisan system deeply entrenched in money and influence.
Swore was going to be this, big energizing jolt to the American electorate to reframe the 2020 race. And, all of the reviews of that State of the Union, they all said that that was going to be a game changer for their campaign. 48 hours later from the State of the Union, just like this, instantly forgettable. It's almost like I always call it like cotton candy messaging. Like it melts on contact. No one's even going to remember it 48 hours from now.
Well, I mean, your hips remember the cotton candy, so there's that distinction. Here's one of the things, the galling things. Kevin mentions, George Soros. There's a very long list of billionaires on both sides that make donations, but it's 2-1 Dems to Republicans. It's the Democrats definitely outweigh the Republicans when it comes to billionaire donors. We all know this. So why is Biden doing? It's just if you're a tech billionaire and suddenly you're part of this oligopoly that's trying to rule America with a tech iron fist?
Kasparian took aim at the Democrats' reluctance to confront their own hypocrisy regarding billionaire influence, pointing out the contradiction in their messaging. While they frequently criticize Republicans for being beholden to wealthy donors, Democrats themselves rely heavily on billionaire backers to fund their campaigns. Kelly, on the other hand, emphasized the Biden administration's failure to effectively communicate with voters. According to her, their inability to craft clear and inspiring messages has left Americans feeling disconnected and disillusioned. Despite their different ideological backgrounds, Kasparian and Kelly found common ground in calling out systemic corruption rather than engaging in partisan blame games. Their discussion highlights a growing frustration with traditional political narratives that prioritize division over meaningful reform. As Americans grow weary of empty rhetoric and broken promises, their exchange signals a shift in public discourse, one that moves beyond party loyalty to examine deeper structural issues affecting everyone.